All right. On the show, we have Dr. Nygil Cullins and NAACP Georgia President Attorney Gerald Griggs. They've been on this, obviously, since day one, advocating and fighting. Dr. Cullins and Attorney Griggs, thank you both for being on the program.
Thank you for having us, Rashard.
Thank you for being here. I wish it was under better circumstances. Let me first go to you, Dr. Cullins. Hearing your passion and obviously your advocacy, can you give us some insight as to what happened? Have you seen the video? Has the government, the city allowed you to see that video? And what's the insight today?
Yes. After meeting with the mayor, we was granted the opportunity to see some of the video. We have not seen the full 59 minutes of the video, but we did see the segment in which the police entered the restaurant. And my son was actually surrendering, trying to cooperate. I let Attorney Griggs go into detail, but the new information that we learned, my son was not aggressive, and the narrative that they painted was not true, which I knew in my heart that it wasn't true when I heard the story. I knew that my son was not an aggressive person. Even in his worst state of mind, he wasn't aggressive, and he would never try to harm anyone. Now, I don't know why. Well, I do know why Atlanta Police Department attempted to indicate that he was the aggressor, so they retaliated and did what they felt that was necessary to save him and others. But what do you do when you find out that my son had his hands up and he wasn't a threat? What do you do?
Wow. Attorney Griggs, give us your insight as to what was seen.
Yeah, so this entire incident is caught on body cam and surveillance footage. And what you see when the police initially respond, they respond to a customer that is being disorderly. And as you see them come in, the description that's given, he has spiky hair, he has gold teeth, it all leads to a certain narrative. And then once they got to Nygil, he was at the bar, he was eating food. Once he saw the police, he turned around, put his hands up, and started to get on the ground to comply with the commands of the police. At which point the police told him to put his hands behind his back. Then they tased him. After they tased him, that's when Nygil got up. He ran around the rear of the restaurant towards the back, towards the door, where he's contacted by the security officer who tackled him. A gun discharged. We're still not sure how the gun discharged, but at that point, the police shot him. And the most shocking part of this is the body cam footage that shows, and the surveillance footage that shows, after they shot him, they took about a 5 to 10 second pause and then shot him some more. So Nygil was shot more than 10 times in his body, 5 times initially and then 5 more times. And that's the deep concern of his family, the deep concern of the NAACP, is the gross, excessive use of force here. Nygil was attempting to comply when they tased him, and of course he did what anybody would do once they were tased. He went into shock and he tried to flee from the being tased when he was tackled by security, a gun discharged, and then they shot him multiple times. So we're calling on the Atlanta Police Department to release this body cam and surveillance footage to, 1, clear the narrative, and to 2, add transparency and clarity as to what happened, and ultimately allow the Fulton County District Attorney's Office access to information so they can make the appropriate charging decisions. Because you cannot shoot somebody while they're on the ground and then shoot them some more.
That has to be one of the most extreme visuals I can imagine. Let me go back to Dr. Cullins, the mother. You know your son. You said clearly from the beginning he's not aggressive, even though you did what you needed to do to try to get help for your son. You knew that he was not this person they were painting him to be. Give us the first narrative you received, because I remember day one of this story. What was the first thing the police told you happened?
Actually, they didn't say much. They just stated that they had to basically shoot Nygil, and they said it was mishandled. A police officer that asked for me not to give his name that I was actually speaking to said that it was mishandled from the beginning all the way to the end of the story. He said, Dr. Cullins, fight. Just fight, because it's not right. And when he told me that, I knew anyway that it wasn't right. But even when he told me that, I said, okay, let me find the holes in the story. So when they gave the same narrative that they gave the public, let me be clear, the GPI didn't really say much. They didn't give, so the narrative that I got was not from the police department directly. It was from the news, from conversations of people saying they heard things on the radio. I never really got a direct, this is what happened from Atlanta Police Department at all. All I kept getting was, it's under investigation, it's under investigation, it's under investigation. So I never had anything clear, cut, and dry. My communication was the night of the killing, the murder of my son, when the police officer told me that information about it being mishandled from the beginning to the end, and for me to fight it because it didn't make sense. I'm like, why did this happen? I called, I waited 2 hours. When they got there, they stayed every bit of 1 second after we told them that Nygil had just left 10 minutes ago. They didn't ask questions. They didn't ask what he had on. They got back in the car and they left.
Let me talk about
30 minutes later.
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying less than 30 minutes later, I get a call from one of his friends saying, Ma, it's that Nygil. And I'm like, where? And he's telling me where Nygil was at. But by the time I can make it over there, and, Nygil was pronounced deceased.
We got to highlight the reality of you trying to seek help. You called the authorities, according to Fox 5, to seek mental health help for Nygil.
I found him a bed. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I found him a bed, made sure it was available, gave the agency his name, his information, told him that I'm just waiting for transportation. I made it clear when I called at 5:11 p.m. on May the 18th, 2022. I told them who I was to Nygil. I told him that he was not in his right frame of mind. I didn't give them the extent of him being delusional or talking out his head or anything like that, because I knew how to handle Nygil. I just knew that he wasn't in a state of mind that I could put him in a car safely and transport him. So I made it clear what my need was, and they didn't answer my call. And when they did come, after waiting 2 hours, Nygil had already left. And I'm surprised that he was able to even stay with me as long as he did. But if the system wasn't broken, the communication was clearly communicated throughout Atlanta, then when that call came in of Nygil being at the restaurant, my son he could have still been here. And because of lack of what is implemented now as far as the system that they have in place, they said one police station doesn't communicate with another police station depending on what side of town it is. So that's the reason why the broken communication was not there, and they wasn't aware that Nygil was the same person I called about earlier that day.
Attorney Griggs, you cannot talk about this story without the context of our broken mental health response system in this city, in this state, in this country. Talk to us about the reality of cause and effect, because the mother literally reached out, did what she was supposed to do. The young man is suffering from a mental health issue. We all have them. And if our systems operated properly, our young brother would be alive today. Talk to us about that aspect of the issue.
Absolutely. Nygil was in mental health distress. His mother had already called for services. She had secured the services. And if the law enforcement agencies had been communicating with one another, and this is actually within a department, had been communicating with one another, they could have sent out crisis interveners and gotten the transportation for Nygil from the photo of the child to the bed that was already provided. And this underscores the need for real crisis intervention when we have these situations. The Fulton County Jail, and that's a whole nother conversation, is the largest provider of mental health services, but there are breakdowns in the system from the local police department to the sheriff's department to the overall mental health component. And so if They had heeded to Dr. Cullins' call and appeared where she asked them to appear and then gone to where they needed to go, Nygil would still be here, and he'd be a story that we were lifting up about the proper way to provide mental health services in a crisis. But instead, we are on the radio and on TV trying to correct a false narrative that's going around that this man wasn't executed. And clearly from the video, he was executed. You don't stand over somebody and shoot them 5 times and then shoot them 5 more times after taking a pause and walking around the body. So I think that this underscores the brokenness of the system and the need for real comprehensive change that starts with Nygil's case, because we continue to see these. We continue to see mental health calls that lead into the death of an individual when the police are not equipped to accurately respond to these incidents.
Dr. Cullins, we only have a couple of minutes left, and what I want you to do is tell us about the character, the spirit, the virtue of your son.
Nygil was a blessing. He had a big heart. He loved everyone. He fed the homeless. He loved photography. He took pictures. He loved music. He loved to make people smile. He was a magnet of peace, love, and so many blessings. If you had the opportunity to meet Nygil, and as you can see through the work of what we're doing now on behalf of his family, you can see the love that Nygil has. And Nygil had, and Nygil has in reference to the support he has, even if he's not here physically with us. Since Nygil passed, and I know we don't have long, we have made a community center in Bibb County in honor of Nygil. It's a 35,000 square foot community center where we do a lot of different community events for Nygil. Just yesterday, we fed the homeless in honor of Nygil. We are doing everything that Nygil, if he was here, he would have been doing. So we're doing everything as a family to show you not only who Nygil is, but the family that he comes from and the love that was tragically taken away from us due to this incident with law enforcement in Fulton County.
We want you to feel the love that we have for you, for your son, because we know absent from the body is present with the Lord. We know that.
Yes.
To Attorney Griggs, thank you, dear brother, for all of your continued advocacy. We're going to continue to echo this story and call for the Fulton County DA to be more forceful about getting this evidence, for the city of Atlanta to be more transparent about relaying this evidence so that a proper decision can be made. All right? If there's anything we can do, you know the door is open. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll be talking soon. We got more on the other side. News and Talk 1380 WAOK.